I'm Alex, and I'm joined by my teammates Steven and Aliaksandr. Today we're exploring one of the most significant events in cybersecurity history, the Edward Snowden case. In 2013, Snowden leaked classified NSA documents exposing a massive government surveillance program. This raised major concerns about privacy, security, and government oversight. But here's the big question. How much privacy should we expect in a digital world? And is mass surveillance ever justified? Before we dive in, we want you, our audience, to think about this. Do you believe government surveillance makes us safer, or does it go too far? We'll come back to this at the end, so let's keep it in mind as we go through today's discussion.
Hey, so let's start with the facts. Edward Snowden was a contractor for the NSA, one of the most powerful intelligence agencies in the US, and in June 2013, he leaked thousands of classified documents to journalists at The Guardian and The Washington Post, which I think that information comes from, it comes from the Metropolitan Books. Yeah, so these documents reveal that the NSA was running surveillance programs that secretly collected data from phone calls, emails, and internet activity, not just from suspected criminals, but from millions of everyday people. One of the most controversial programs Snowden exposed was PRISM, which allowed the NSA to gather data from major tech companies like Google, Facebook, and Microsoft, which this bit of information is from the Washington Post. And another program, Upstream, intercepted internet traffic directly from fiber optic cables. The US justified these programs by saying they were necessary to prevent terrorism, but the public reaction was an outrage. People felt their right to privacy had been violated without their knowledge or consent, which this is from the Snowden files. So a question for the audience is, do you think companies like Google and Facebook should be responsible for protecting user data from government surveillance, or is it up to individuals to protect their own privacy?
That's a really important debate. Some people believe Snowden did the right thing by exposing these programs. They see him as a whistleblower who stood up for citizens' rights. Others argue that they harmed national security by revealing how intelligence agencies track threats. The US government quickly responded, charging Snowden with espionage. He fled the country and was later granted asylum in Russia, where he still lives today. But the impact of his actions didn't stop there. After the leaks, the US made some changes. One major response was the US Freedom Act of 2015, which limited how phone records could be collected. But surveillance itself hasn't gone away. It has just evolved. Do you think laws like the USA Freedom Act did enough to protect privacy, or do intelligence agencies still have too much power?
That's a tough one. Even today, government surveillance is still a big issue. Snowden's leaks made people more aware of how their data is collected, but modern technology has made it even easier for intelligence agencies to track people, according to The Age of Surveillance Capitalism by Zuboff 2019. Now let's connect this to cybersecurity. Surveillance programs often rely on intrusion methods that bypass normal authentication processes. Instead of hacking a system, intelligence agencies might use legal loopholes to force companies to hand over private data. This raises a huge cybersecurity concern. If governments can access private data, what stops hackers from exploiting the same vulnerabilities? Do you think privacy-focused tools like encryption and VPNs should be more widely used, or do they make it harder for law enforcement to do their job?
It's a great final thought. At the end of the day, Snowden's case changed the way we think about privacy, surveillance, and cybersecurity. Whether you see him as a hero or a traitor, his actions sparked a global conversation that's still going on today.
So before we wrap up, let's ask each other a few questions based on what we covered. Steven, based on your research, do you think whistleblowers like Snowden should be protected, or should there be consequences for leaking classified information?
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one. On one hand, whistleblowers help expose corruption and abuse. But on the other hand, releasing classified information could put national security at risk. Maybe there should be a way for whistleblowers to report issues internally instead of leaking them publicly. What do you think? Did the US Freedom Act actually fix anything, or was it just a political move?
Yeah, I think it was a step in the right direction, but it didn't solve the core issue. Intelligence agencies still collect a lot of data, just in different ways. The real problem is transparency. Most people still don't know how much of their data is being collected. Alex, let's talk cybersecurity. Do you think companies like Apple and Google should fight back against government surveillance, or should they cooperate?
That's a great question. Apple, for example, has refused to unlock iPhones for law enforcement before arguing that it would set a dangerous precedent. But at the same time, companies have a responsibility to prevent criminal activity. It's a fine line between privacy and security, and I don't think there's an easy answer.